This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here?
Sorry about that. Had a little finger slip. But as we get this stream going, we might maybe join in quick and more people get in before I start showing the live actual making the MonoAtomic zinc and copper plasma state electrolysis in this little how to do update video. I'm going to play this great clip that Campbell made for us, and hopefully we will have Michelle Gibson and Campbell in another Burn Eye Weekend podcast coming up.
This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, we seem to be here and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And, you know, I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of, it's, you know, it's an unsafe world, there's not enough for you, it's scary, everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one. Or
Cosmic resonance, that's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
You know, when you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, you know, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, you know, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, you know, wake up? Or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
Who's awesome? You're awesome. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's actually just myself, Bernard, the Alchemist right now, and Mike from Faraday is he should be joining in quickly here or shortly with me. But I'm just, as the deep freeze has left Calgary, Alberta, and the Chinook, the snow eater, has come in, and we are above 0 degrees Celsius, and snow has melted. I'm doing a little bit of the experiments outside, just do a simple proof of concept demonstration. In the top left there, you can see there's this Tupperware, and it's got the nano-coated Keshi Magrav triple copper coil that's round in series of 9s, and it's a solenoid inside of solenoid inside of solenoid, doing his triple electromagnetic gravitational philosophy, or I guess as well. So for the average electrician, it doesn't make sense, the nano coating of why are you degrading the outside layers of the physical copper, right? Ohm's law, it's like you're making that copper worthless. It doesn't make sense. But when dealing with monoatomic single atom, the plasma state, you're having to break down that physical covalent bonds from the full crystal structured solid metal down to the outside being just that one single covalent bond left on it. And that is how it is then able to be coated or nano coated with these other single atom and multi-particle, multi-atom chemical combinations, and thus getting your plasma state or your superconductor nano material. And yeah, so the theory goes, or with superconductors, and it's a triple solenoid, right, within itself. So you've got 3 electromagnetic fields creating themselves within it, just by moving simple magnets or a small amount of electricity through these Keshi coils. So that's going to be on the copper cathode side. And then on the anode side, I'm going to have zinc. And for also a scientific experiment, this one, this is straight poisonous. You never ever consume or ingest water where it's actually forming the blue oxides, the red rust ones and whatnot. But I'm going to include the iron on the anode side, also for proof of concept in some of these monoatomics, where the iron, actually the particles, when it gets into that monoatomic and the plasmoids, they lose their magnetic property. Iron ferrite is losing its, when it's in the pure single atom state, it actually loses its magnetism. So that's another thing of why I'm making these particles per se. And then supposedly also with the Keshi thesis, when you get large amounts of what he calls GAN, so it's an acronym, gas atom, so single atom, like when it's in a gaseous state, your isotopes, your ionized gas, aka single atom in a plasma state, that's your noble gases in a plasma state when they're ionized. So what this alchemy is when you have your elemental metals in a plasma state, they exist as these monoatomic single atom, but this white fluffy material, and it's one of the key things in Sir Isaac Newton's alchemy descriptions of all metals being able to be produced down to this single, he calls it mercurial, but molecular, I guess in our words, because that's Old English. I'm showing you here. See, in the background, there's zinc and copper, and I had silver as well on the anode and zinc side. And then this is hanging there on the left, behind, or to the right of Bert and Ernie, but to the left of the Sika horse and smiley face there is one of these previous Magrav nano-coated copper coils, and some of the transmutations and different particulates and plasmoids that formed off of it on this electrolysis transmutational process. But so you can see what it looks like after it's done, and then I'll be showing you a new one that I have out here in this left side here. When you see it, it will be completely black, nano-coated copper. What the? Sorry, that is my fan. My bad. I'm doing a science experiment live casting. Jeez Louise. Oh, honey. Does it keep going? Did we lose it? All right, we're still going. Okay. The science can continue. All right, well, here I have a copper before it is nano-coated Keshi triple solenoid coil. And this actually is a different style triple solenoid within solenoid that I created that I really want to hook up to a lot of electricity because it's actually done in a triple winding way that the moon orbits around the Earth and the Earth orbits around the sun and the sun orbits around the center of the galaxy is how it is done. And then I also have one where there's actually galvanized steel woven as well in part of it, thus not just copper but also dealing with others. But that's when you put a whole bunch high voltage into that, it might turn into molten liquid plasma right away too. So, you know, especially with the neodymiums in it too, it's like, who knows what that actually would create. But here is the triple or the double triple Magrav Keshi, and mostly nano-coated, but it has eroded because it's delicate and this has been moved around. This one's more of a healing one, the full unit, where the electrical, you then have 3 of the monoatomics put in the midst of them, and instead of this crystal, you have it going to capacitors and then connecting to your Joule Thief bell ringer circuit and to the outside grid, and it reduces your electricity. I've seen, actually, I will be reproducing the experiments myself, and we will see how it goes. Anywho, so here is actually the pure nano-coated, been caustic coated, so there's the caustic lime soda underneath. It turns like a nice purpley blue, actually, copper over time. It's pretty cool. Oh, you can see the plasma interference that is caused when you put the lights up around these monoatomics. It always gets that sort of wavy, different interference, as well as you also see spotty parts too, with the different, probably radiation plasma interference, basically. So that will be going on the cathode side, and then we have this iron, and see, this is something as well. When you're buying zinc, beware from hardware stores, because often they will mislabel galvanized steel as zinc, and then when you're going to make your zinc copper combination, you're actually getting iron and can give yourself heavy metal poisoning very, very quickly and easily that way if you consume any of it or the water. And there's so many ways that you can poison yourself and harm yourself exponentially with if you do the plasma alchemy water wrong, or the monoatomic colloidal waters wrong. And if anything ever oxidizes, turning green, red, sulfides, mercurides red, yellow, any color but the pure fluffy white, you never ever touch it for anything other than
the scientific in the manufacturing nanocoating, nanoparticulates, and rotation and at high RPM apparently will create plasma fields that are usable if you rotate these plasmoid particles, nanoparticles. Anyway, so how simple it is to make. All you need is boil it into and connect right here. All it is literally the ends cut off of your positive and negative of a simple old cell phone charger, 5 watts going in, and yeah, that's all we're working with. That's all it takes. Oh dear. If the girlfriend was only watching my streams instead of trying to call me and interrupt them, well, hopefully we won't lose service. She'd probably call and be like, why the hell are you streaming and not on your way here? Anywho. Yes, this is. It is also, when used with monoatomic gold and silver, the process of creating the legendary mana of the demigods. And while they could fly around, they were telepathic, and they had blue skin, which apparently, if you consume a bunch of gold or silver, you turn blue. And well, I don't know. I've only ever done the white stuff because blue stuff kill you. But that is because it is not a single atom plasma state. It is bonded with like an oxide or a sulfide or a calcide. Ormus is the same thing. Yeah. So David Hudson calls it orbitally rearranged electron molecule or something like that. And essentially, he also says it's monoatomic, and it's just another acronym like Keshe's GAN's gas atom nano solid state, right? It's all the same complex words of a mono single atom plasma state solid atom. All right, so that's what the pure white is. And that essentially would also be theoretically your quantum matter, because it is not tangled with a second atom in a solid state. It is existing solely as that single one, and thus how it is quantum matter, and plasma is fourth dimensional, so then it interacts with the higher fifth ether and sixth crystal and seventh and up dimensions, and how you get your superconducting, over unity, less weight, and all of the rest of it. Tungsten is the closest to gold. I have, I believe, turned tungsten on the cathode side, or sorry, no, the anode side, tungsten on the anode side, and copper on the cathode side. Temporarily, the outside to gold, it crystallized, it formed, it also did silver. I think it was copper and tungsten. Yeah. But after a time of about 6 to 9 months, they dissolved back. And it's when they're in what Sir Isaac Newton calls the pink sixth state of transmutation of metal elements, the crystalline state, that you are able to get these metals to transmutate to the other ones. And I believe it is done through putting the harmonic frequency of the element, aka its resonant frequency, into the anode side that you have the metal that is one atom off. So if you want gold, you have tungsten, so it's one off. And then through the electrolysis, cold fusion, you're creating the atomic hydrogen, which then bonds with this crystallized state metal. And then through that harmonic resonant frequency of the element up and that small amount of energy, you're able to fully transmutate it, and how the alchemist and cold fusion and transmutation all works. So yeah, all right. I will put this up here and just start hooking it up to show you guys. I'll be back momentarily, grabbing gloves. Also, don't necessarily try this at home. Bob Grenier, amazing individual, but his project is called the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project for a reason. This is real cold fusion. Depending on the temperature, the voltages, and the energies you're using, you're going to have live nuclear reactions, possible decay, and radiation. So it needs to be done in labs, and that's why I am only using a very small 5-volt AC. If anything, just use a simple 3.5-volt DC battery if you're going to try this at home. And instead of like zinc, you can use the nano-coated copper, which triggers the plasma state forming off of the anode side. And you use silver on the anode and the nano-stated copper on the cathode side for making your own monoatomic silver as a process.
Oh, we got Mikey. We got Mikey.
Hey,
What's happened, brother?
you know, being domesticated today. Cooked dinner,
Oh,
did the laundry.
That ain't bad.
Yeah, that's the way it is. Gotta be done, gotta be done.
Most definitely. So I'm going to show right now for the pure monoatomic that Isaac Newton talks about. For instance, this is what it is you want to achieve, and the ultimate goal, whether it's with silver, gold, zinc, copper, or any of the others. This mixture right here is actually copper, zinc, gold, and silver all in here, all done separately and harvested and mixed together. When you've made it properly and right, it will forever stay in this pure monoatomic state, where others will decay and get your oxidized, where it starts turning green, red, orange, sulfide, and all the other particle states. This guy's been sealed for about 2 years now. So it's like, if you make it right, you're literally getting this monoatomic plasma quantum matter that apparently is the mana from ages past. It is the superconducting nanostate material. It is what NASA with the colloidal silver they state is what they use in space to treat viruses and bacteria, right? So it's like lots of people use colloidal silver. I use colloidal silver, gold, zinc, copper combination for several years. People say I look younger than my age of 36. So I've stayed healthy. I've been exposed to many people that have had COVID, and most of them have actually had at least 1 or 2 of the shots, yet still have caught it. I've been exposed to many of them, been tested, never caught it, and keep healthy. I also do ingest constantly an extra high dose of vitamin C and vitamin D supplement too,
Right.
which it keeps my pee yellow on that snow, but mixed with the colloidal waters, it's quite the healthy process or treatment, I guess.
Yeah, just want to say hi to everybody. Hey, Aaron. I see Aaron's online, and Justin, thanks for joining us. And
Absolutely.
I managed to get my 3D printer back online.
I
on
saw that
Sunday.
earlier today. I was sharing your little shorts. They're freaking
Yeah.
sweet, brother.
Yeah. So it worked pretty good. Just had to re-level the table, which was almost like dead on, so it didn't get banged around too badly in the move. And I fixed the support beams on the side of the machine so I don't get any Z wobble. So I fixed all that up and fired it up, and she worked pretty good. So I got my 3D printer back online, and she's ready to rock.
Nice.
So yeah, just trying to plan the stuff I want to do in the next little while.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's
Well-
why I am doing this little random stream, is to just start and show here. And Mike, for the HHH or HHO Brown's gas and all of that, the electrolysis, I'm showing the Keshi coil that I have nano coated.
Right.
It's going in on the cathode side, the copper side, and the anode side, I've got some iron and zinc I'm putting in.
Yeah,
And,
it depends. I think it all depends on the application, what you're going to do. Like for alchemy stuff, you need to do the electrolysis stuff. But for the guys that are into the HHO, you have to get away from actually using electrolysis, and you have to get into what Walt Jenkins was into. So basically, what he's done is eliminated the electrolysis process altogether. It's gone because the electrolysis actually does work, but here's the big but.
The key is to have the smallest amount.
Oh, did we lose you? Oh, you went offline on the one feed there. But what I was saying is, it depends on, like, the HHO stuff still works for the cars, but that's not actually the gas that you're after. Actually, the oxygen and the hydrogen is actually the contaminant in the system. It's what's going on in between the two electrodes is what you're looking for, and that's the nanocluster. The nanocluster is the toroidal 0-point field that's being created between the anode and cathode. So Walt Jenkins came up with a patent. It's actually registered to his name. And basically what you use is one of those fogger things that makes the fog. And when you make that fog, he sets up a electrical grid inside and hits that fog with a high voltage. And the high voltage now creates those nanoclusters is what you're actually looking for. Because in the electrolysis process, those nanoclusters, they start accumulating on your anode and cathode and don't get out. Some do, but there's methods that you can do to get those nanoclusters out, and that's done by cavitation. Cavitation could be mixing the water up as it's running, blowing air into the area where the reaction's happening, vibration, ultrasonic sound. That will release the nanoclusters.
I'm going to be able to do some of that with your generous donation.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make one for you, Bernie. I think I'm gonna make you one of these generators, and then I'll send it off to you.
Just a parts list, brother, and I'll make it with you.
Yeah, I have to come up with the actual design of what I want to do. I kind of have a pretty good idea how I want to do it. So I'll get a parts list for you and we can build one together. And so the real test will be this. Okay, this will be the test if you're actually doing it right. So listen up and listen hard. After you make the nanoclusters inside the fog, okay, if you did the experiment correctly, you should be able to pour that fog out into a second container. Okay, the nanoclusters are, we'll call it H4, okay? When you pour the H4 into a cup or a flask or whatever you just want to use, you pour it in. Now, H4 gas has a higher density than air and hydrogen. So therefore, it will stay at the bottom of the container, okay? If there's any hydrogen or oxygen, it will dissipate. Actually, not oxygen. Hydrogen's the main one. It will dissipate itself off the top of the flask or whatever container you're using. So you leave that for a couple hours, okay, with the lid open. And then you should be able to go in with one of those, the electrostatic lighters and go point it down inside the flask, light it up. It should pop. If it pops, that means you made the nano cluster. Because the nano cluster, you should be able to pour it physically, like pouring water into another cup. Because its mass is heavier than air, it should stay at the bottom of the container. So just to make sure that your experiment is legit, let it sit for maybe an hour or so, and then take that lighter and zap it. And if it pops at the bottom of the container, you know you achieved it, that the nano cluster was inside that container. So the Walt Jenkins, you can look it up on Google, Google Patents. Walt Jenkins what did he call it? The electrostatic ionizer or something like that. I have to look it up. I'll have to look up the actual name. I have it in my favorites on my other computer. But you could actually type in Walt Jenkins, Google Patents, and it should have it there, and you can check it out. It's pretty interesting. So basically, he's doing electrolysis without the electrolysis, which is pretty cool. I know, Bernie, you still there? I don't see you.
Oh yeah, I'm here, just tying this together. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Connecting
So-
the cathode side to the nano-coated MagRav coil.
Okay. So going back to this, very important. Now the HHO, if you make the generator with a certain design, it has to do how close the anode and cathode are together. If you get them with, say, 1 millimeter gap between the two, you will naturally be able to get the cavitation you want to get those nanoparticles out. But it's fact that, say, like a car engine, you need 300 liters per minute of hydrogen in order to sustain the car running. Okay? With the nanoclusters, it produces something like 30 or 100 times more gas than the hydrogen. But the thing is, you can't see it. It's a nanocluster. You cannot see it. That's why this gas is so unique. So Walt Jenkins hooked his up to a car engine, and it worked. So it proved that the nanoclusters are there and also produce enough volume in order to sustain the engine. So, very interesting experiment. Definitely going to be working on that. Actually, I'd like to purchase a small little gas engine and jerry rig it and hook up that generator to it and see if I can actually run a small engine. And if I could run a small engine with this nano cluster, oh man, the potential is just, oh man, unbelievable.
Those that want to donate Mike a small gas generator to work with, I'm sure he would be super stoked. Speed up the process.
Yeah, like
has an extra one out there doing nothing.
Well, see, the thing is, like, a lot of guys that have been working on this, they start off using a small genset, right? Genset is those little generators that you put gas in and you let it run outside your house. And some of these guys were just using very cheap ones, $300-400, buy the genset, jerry rig their system, bypass the intake manifold, or the intake, air intake for the motor, and just hook it right up to your nano cluster generator. And then if all theory is right, it should run that engine. So, and also the spark gap that's created inside the chamber is actually quite important too. There's actually, Walt Jenkins, I believe, actually designed a spark plug for this. And know how the spark plug electrode that's usually like square? Well, his is actually round. It's like a dome. And then the ground, that little ground piece of metal that comes up and goes and creates that gap there. Well, instead of just having the one, he has about 4 of them going equal spaced all the way around, and they all join in the center. So when it makes the spark gap, it's actually creating this plasma in a ball form. And that's what he's using to ignite the nano cluster. So it's actually a very effective method of burning that type of a gas. So, you setting up a new experiment, or?
Yes, sir. Showing the production of monoatomic copper and zinc.
Is this in your garage, or?
This is in my backyard alchemy experiment. The backyard science festival vending tent.
Oh, you got the Mueller setup.
Turned into Burncron for life. That is my clothing line. Burncron Exports. Yeah, so since the whole lockdown situation, these lovely ladies aren't dressed and selling my wonderful clothing merchandise at the festival. So instead, we are doing some science.
Yep. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm out of work right now, so all I can do is work on my experiments. And
as am I.
What's that?
I said, as am I.
Yeah. So I got to keep my mind moving, otherwise I'll go insane.
Exactly. That's why not teach some electrolysis alchemy right now and monoatomic colloidal.
See, I work like 50-hour work weeks, so going from 50 hours a week to nothing is like, like I'm like
I got 50 hours a week to work on it.
Yeah, I was working a lot of hours. Right? So I got my coffee going. I'm talking to you and talking about science, and it's all good.
Exactly. Government gives us a little bit of aid to.
Still waiting for that to come in. Well, I got approved, so I'm still waiting for that to come in. So.
Hopefully, trust in judo will get you your money soon.
That would help. That would definitely help. What I'm going to be doing soon is get myself one of those washing machine pump motors, and I'll be working on the Gerald Moore. Yeah, I'm going to be making one of those. I got a drive motor already with a motor controller, and I've got basically all the stuff I need except for that pump motor. So as soon as I get that pump, then I'm ready to rock.
Nice.
Yeah. So what I might actually do is hook that up and try to somehow make a coil or make my own transformer. So it's going to go from, say, 137 volts AC, and I'm going to try to bump it up to, well, I'll see how I can make the coil or the transformer if I can get it. I'm hoping to get maybe 500 to 1,000 volts out of that, put it through a spark gap, and see if I can replicate some of the stuff that Gerald Moore was working on. I've been watching a lot of his videos lately. Basically everything. I'm watching everything that he did. So it's funny how
I will
talk about this before.
Too. Oh, see, I connect it. You get the instant bubbles and the plasma ray interference.
Yep. Oh, it's right away. What do you use as electrolyte? Are you using just salt or just?
Just simple salt and just 5 volts AC. connector, and then see, as soon as it's hooked up, you get that plasma light interference. The wave.
Now they're saying with electrolysis you shouldn't use any more than 5 volts.
Exactly, and that's what the max out on. I recommend if people are going to try it, only use soft metals, and actually only use like a 3.5 volt DC battery as opposed to plugging into AC, because AC you're getting into instant cold fusion. You use higher metals, you're going to be having nuclear decay. You use high voltage, you're going to be having nuclear decay. You put in higher voltage, you're going to start having actual the plasma light forming helium between the two cathode and anode in between it, and extreme temperatures and the rest. And yeah, that is why you do not mess around with that unless you know what you're doing in the lab. And this is just
lots of ventilation.
Exactly, and that's why I'm also doing this outside in a vending tent. Crucial. And that is just the cutoff of an old phone charger, a little 5 volt. And you can see instantly. And the key part here is when you copper, that's what triggers the pure monoatomic plasma on the cathode side, this time being, or the anode side, this time being the zinc. But you can have copper on copper, copper on zinc, silver, gold, any of them, and it will produce this pure white monoatomic and not the oxidized blue or red or sulfide or the rest of it. And every single metal will turn into this pure white.
Maybe that's why mine was when I was
qand, ormus. It is monoatomic plasma state.
Now I was with my anode and cathode on my HHO that I was doing back in 2005. I was using 2 stainless steel plates. Was that the reason why it was changing red and all that and all the funny colors?
Exactly. You got it. And it was forming, it was oxidizing the steel. And that then is no longer the monoatomic. It's bonded with the oxide, thus creating a no longer quantum single state plasma, but a plasmoid in the nano size, in the nano state. So it still is a plasmoid, but it's like if you ingest it, that's what dissolve or like will destroy your cells because it's too big. Where the single atom monoatomic, like this stuff, which I don't. So your own risk. I have ingested small amounts over the years. You have to build up your tolerance. But the theory is that the pure monoatomic, the plasma, the single atom, the quantum matter, it's small enough that it goes through into your cells and what your body plasma cells, blood cells use, as opposed to the particulates, the oxide, and whatnot, and thus the heavy metal poisoning that people have. That's why they turn blue, is because they're accumulating the oxidized heavy metals, and it is a huge difference. And this nano-coated creates the plasma monoatomic field, which is then able to give you the pure white.
Okay, question for you. I got a question. So if I got, say, a stainless steel plate and then I put a copper plate with it, will I get that oxidation again, or will I not get it?
Not if you nano coat the copper first, which there's a couple ways to do the nano coating. One is how I have this stuff with the caustic soda water underneath, right? And it dissolves the outside, creating the black nano coating. But you can also use the pure plasma flame torch, but a much larger torch, and then you heat it just to the red level, and then it'll turn the outer layer black. You can't go over too much because then it will turn the entire into the nano layers, so you can't get the electrical out of it. The key is on the outside.
Do I do it to the copper, or do I do it to
you do it to the copper, and then when you run it, so the third way that you get the nano coating is through the electrolysis itself. And as you can already see on the zinc side, the darker coating that's already forming on that zinc plate now, that is also now nano coated. So then it's like you're able to nano coat it that way by having on one side, the copper side, nano-coated, it then triggers the opposite metal to nano-coat itself through the electrolysis. And
So
then
you kind of
create
have to kickstart it, right?
exactly. You're forming the field unity of the Keshi calls the gravitational plasma fields of them or something. The harmonic frequent field essentially of that monoatomic plasma state.
Right. So you just got to kickstart it and let the reaction take over.
Exactly. And so what it is you're breaking down the outside layers of that solid state metal element for all those covalent bonds from each other that make it that strong electric or magnetic properties. Those outside layers down to atom state, thus this nano coating, a nano single atom size that then is able to interact with this plasma monoatomic material and then be able to be utilized from the plasma state itself or the monoatomic state itself.
Right. I'll be back in 1 second. I just got to top up my coffee here.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back 2 seconds.
And so in here, you can see the pure white is being filmed, but a little bit of blue color now appearing, but mostly white. And that is because I didn't wash off the caustic of this coil before putting it in, and that is what's triggering a very small amount of the oxidization in some of it. So if it does start going completely blue or green, you would never ever take this into something that you then rinse and start using the colloidal waters of. And so something to understand is colloidal water on average, like your colloidal silver that's sold, is about 7 to 16 parts per million, where this monoatomic plasma state material is 1 million parts per million. So strength differential, and that when you have it below, charging the water that you have above that then is like what I drink, but it's been rinsed 9 times over before you start just using top. Anyways, that is what is giving you the extremely strong colloidal water that is then able to create the strongest colloidal waters daily on large amounts that people are paying like $10 for like 100 milliliters of colloidal silver, or probably even much higher. When you make your own like this, you can literally start making gallons a day of the strongest. I need to get it tested, but it'll probably be in the 20s, if not higher, parts per million colloidal waters. And yeah, it's ridiculous that it's so simple and so easy. And
I'm
so
showing
something
my,
like this that has a small amount of the blue oxidization, but mostly the white particles that can be rinsed out. That is something that you probably rinse out, and I will use for experiments of creating water for like plants and growing plants and stuff like that, and do some controlled experiments like have been done with magnetic water, structured water, as well as the Keshi Foundation. Their agricultural department has done huge amounts. They're going to follow some of their guidelines, as well as probably start posting the results and updates in APEC, as well as some of the other streams that we do.
So here's my 3D print I did.
Okay,
with
here.
the wheel on it.
Oh yeah.
So there's. So this one here takes about 3 hours 15 minutes. The wheel, and I also have bearings, 2 bearings inside that are actually They're actually press fitted. That's how accurate this printer is. So those are in there, and then I did the base plate there. This took about 3 hours and 35 minutes. It's not perfect. I have a few little bugs to work out on this version. I have another version that doesn't have this plate here that holds the magnetic reed switch. So this one here is pretty good. It's got a few bugs on it. I have to fix that, but for the most part, it turned out pretty good. It was a decent print. And I'm using PLA plastic, and the layer height's about 0.2 millimeter, so it's a pretty fine print. Yeah, it turned out all right. It's not perfect, but everything fits. That's the main thing.
Isaac, if you can send me over the run print, I'll get my good friend Isaac to run off a copy for me too, brother.
Oh, your friend that's in town?
Yeah, I can send you my notes. Too.
Yeah, I could send you the file through email, because this is kind of proprietary. This is my design. I actually designed this.
I get that, Mr. Mike. And my good friend Isaac, no, I've actually paid him in crypto already, and he owes me a couple of 3D prints. So, we can replicate as proof of concept and work by making a second one and both running the same experiments.
Yeah, so I'll get those files for you, and I'll send them through your email. They're going to be in a
the
file.
On the Google Drive, brother, too, could work.
What's that?
On the Google, I'll send you my Google Drive link.
Oh, I don't have that.
No, we'll get you it. You need it, and we'll also get you on the Alien Scientist APEC one too, because there's
because I don't want this
database.
Yeah, these plans here I don't want on the internet. I don't want these open sourced. These are actually
you're breaking your own rule, brother.
Yeah, until I'm happy with it, I don't want to put it out there. You know what I mean?
Put it out there so others can work on it. But we can do it privately first, and just do. I will keep it private, not publish it, and we'll just do a second one over here so we can confirm and verify and do it together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do a beta test, right?
Exactly. You're alpha, I'm beta. Column B is, if I was ever going to MC, my name would be COLUMN space B, because I am the column B, the beta, the bear, the killer.
But, okay, you know what? Let's go this route too. Okay, I got a 3D printer, okay? I know how to design stuff, but the average person out there doesn't have that, okay? So when I built my very first pulse motor, I used a friggin' lawnmower wheel, okay?
Right.
I put a lawnmower wheel, bought a little shaft, you can buy the threaded rod, put it into a board, secure it, pop the wheel on it, put some magnets around the wheel, and that's all you need. Yeah, I'm fancy. I got a 3D printer. I can do stuff like that, but not everybody has that. You know what I mean? So you don't have to go super advanced like I'm doing. Use a lawnmower wheel. I've seen people use skateboard wheels. I've seen people use skateboard wheels.
Exactly.
Wheels.
Cut down on it. There's lots of things.
Yeah, you don't.
What I'm actually going to do here, in replicating some of the Keshi MonoAtomic plasma state stuff, is I've got a broken drone that one of the colors broken in, sent me an extra bastard. So I'm taking this along with a couple of the bearings from fidget spinners, and I'm going to be putting these monoatomic balls connected onto the fidget spinner onto these motors, and then generating reproduce the Keshi star reactor. And for those that have not seen it, the Keshi Foundation, the Keshi star reactor, there's 7 where there's Italy showing the role cardinals is working star plasma reactor. It's quite
your feed is really going bad, man.
Of course, they don't want that information getting out.
Yeah.
Okay, don't worry, I'll do a pre-recorded one day explaining the Keshi. Anyways, the thing is, I'm going to be reproducing some of these spinning superconductive plasma state experiments, and I now have the the materials to do so.
Yeah, that's cool.
And just reusing
See,
drone motors and fidget spinner bearings.
yeah, yeah. The fidget spinner bearings are probably the best because they're worked in. Like these ones here, I bought them on Amazon, and if you work them in, you can make them work really good. You just have to basically work them in.
Right? Exactly.
So-
Work it like that, you got it. And the key is to get the fidget spinners that. Sorry, Mike, just for a second.
Yeah.
You got to get the fidget spinners that have the bearings within the bearing, because you need the
Yeah.
trifecta of spinning rotation within the rotation within the rotation to
Yeah.
get the instant gravitational effect. And if you spin one that is like this, that has the bearing within it, you actually feel the anti-gravity effects insanely, the inertia on your.
Yeah, it's the gyroscopic effect. Yeah,
You don't have the bearings within it, or have a fake bearing within it, and
Yeah.
when you spin it, it's not the same. There's
Yeah.
actual inertia that keeps it when you have the rotation within the rotation within the rotation.
yeah. See, like the wheel that I use on my pulse motor, it's basically the only function of it. It's a timing device. All right, because time is a very critical thing when it comes to electricity, and even in the math, there always has to be an equation of time, right? And that's exactly what this wheel does. You get that wheel at the right frequency, this thing will charge your battery. Like my device, the way I design mine is like a mechanical joule thief. So instead of having just a toroidal coil in a transistor, I'm actually using a spark gap switch, okay, which I'm getting the effects of a high voltage spike in the coil. And instead of lighting a light bulb up, if you take out the diodes, where usually you would put a diode in to keep it from going back to the battery, if you take that diode out, now that back EMF goes right back to the battery source. So what happens is it's like a ricochet effect. So you'll have the collapsing EMF field in the coil that comes kicking back, hits the battery. So say your battery, when you start it up, is like 10.5 volts. Within about 15, maybe 20 minutes, you're back up to 12.5 volts. So it's shooting it in, amplifying it, back EMF collapses, comes kicking back right to the battery, and it restores the battery. So you're actually taking a dead battery, powering the device, and recharging itself. So that's how my system works.
I love playing plasma. So what's going to be interesting is when I'm spinning the monoatomic plasma around one of these fields, and if it will increase the actual field that these light bulbs work in, that I am going to have some fun with.
Well, if you get it to an electrostatic state, yes, it will. If you get it to an electrostatic state, and you have, say, like a plate of like aluminum plate, like I did with the plasma ball, if there's static present, you should be able to light up a 5 to a 8 watt light bulb with it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if you can achieve electrostatic discharge off your system there. Yeah, you can collect it as energy. Very much so. But see, this is where a lot of people, and even myself, trying to wrap my head around it. When you're in the electrostatic state, you're also working at an extremely high frequency. So instead of an electricity band like, say, AC or DC, you're now in the RF, okay? RF behaves very different than an AC and DC circuit. So to rectify that problem, one is you got to rectify the electricity with a full wave bridge rectifier. And number two, what you need is an RF choke. And the RF choke will basically change that RF high frequency into either an AC or a DC, But if you're using the full weight bridge rectifier, it is now going to become a DC voltage. So that's something that a lot of people overlook. That's part of the problem, I think, with Don Smith and his machine was he didn't disclose that you need a RF choke in there, because putting an RF signal at, I don't care what frequency it is, say it's at least over a kilohertz, you cannot charge anything effectively with it. You have to get the frequency way down. So I've been watching a couple of guys, and I'm surprised they have not touched on this, where you have to have an RF choke in order to stabilize that frequency into a DC state, and then pump it into, say, like a battery or into a capacitor bank. So I think that's one of the secrets that Don Smith kind of misled a lot of people. So, see, we were talking about this, I guess, in the last show, where I kind of think Don Smith really kind of took a lot of his secrets to the grave. And, you know, it was just that old mindset of, you know, when it comes to like real technical stuff, and they make a discovery, they want to hold on to it as proprietary. Like me in my designs, I want to hold it proprietary until it's good, and then I'll release it. But, you know, I'm also using software too that's, you know, for educational purposes. So I have to be very careful when, you know, with copyright and all that kind of stuff. I have to worry about that. So it's more or less.
Open source.
What's that?
Not if it's open source.
Yeah, if it's open source, yeah. It's just, yeah, right now I just don't think it's ready to actually be put out. I could, I guess. I don't know.
Once we test it, once we do the proof of concept, then absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I've been running my system for the last 2 years now, and it seems to be good. Like I said before, like you don't have to get fancy with 3D printing. Yeah, I have it. I know how to use it. You know, I have an engineering background. I know how to use CAD and 3D modeling and CAD fusion, and you know, I'm just using my skills to make things, right? But some people are not, you know, engineers, and they, you know, they have some engineering skills, but not maybe to the degree that I have. But, you know, like I said, you could use, I've seen guys use scooter wheels. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to get super high tech, right? And the other thing too is most people are using MOSFET chips for their firing. I refuse to use them. I do not want to use them. I use spark gap switches because I get the best effects with the spark gap switch. You have to have, I think, in these systems, that seems to be a common thing. To get the best results, you have to have some form of disruptive discharge. As soon as you have the disruptive discharge, it changes the whole game. It changes the properties. There's a very distinct difference between.
Interrupt you, Mike. I just want to show, like, you can see the little swirl there on top.
Yeah.
It has to do with MonoAtomics. Always seem to do the self-organization entropy. Dan Winters and also,
that's cool.
Maury King there both talk about it substantially.
Right.
Show when the harmonic.
It's going in the vortex. It's creating a vortex.
Exactly. It's always shapes into vortexes. Always. I have crazy pictures up on my Twitter and whatnot of like straight cyclones. But it's that you see it's blue, and then everything inside is yellowy and green, where before it was all white. And it creates this sulfur. They call it the sulfuric yellow state and the blue oxidized state when it's out of harmony, and all of that instant white monoatomic now turns into these toxic particulates that you'd never ever consume anything in these oxidized or sulfur.
And always do this stuff in a ventilated area.
Oh, exactly. That's why it's outside and just
You know, I'm dying to try this stuff, but
There's still some white, but so it might turn back over time. We will see. It depends on it. But all of that matter made in a very small amount of time, it all floating there, and that's plasmoid plasmas, and just.
I'm dying to try this stuff, but I can't do that.
There we go. The density of it, and at the bottom there's about an inch of it already condensed of this pure monoatomic, and then a couple millimeters on top. So,
you know what it looks like to me from my view, from what I'm seeing? It almost looks like a sponge.
What now?
Like it looks like a spongy material, like when I see it.
Oh yeah. The density is something else. It's crazy. This plasmoid monoatomic, people call it ormus, people call it qand. It's your monoatomic plasmoids.
Well, what I think it is it doing self-organization of the vortex field.
You got it, right? And now it's completely gone down, and it's going to rebond the yellow sulfide and the blue oxide. Often they will have this reaction and turn back straight to all pure white, or it will completely oxidize. It depends on the harmoniousness of what you have it in, and the electrical field, sound fields, temperatures, all sorts of things, but also simply intent. And there's so many times that it's like I can't explain why it turned back a certain way, other than pure intention. When it's like the chemical reaction should have done the opposite, but instead just like having the intent and like whatever, it works out. It's just like what the bloody F. And also I had dead batteries in electrolysis reactions, like been dead for days, and you go in, and I did this a couple times, and I'm trying to have a couple different friends where I'm like, watch this, I'm gonna make it work with my mind, and I like just stare at it, and honest to freaking God, 4 different times it started bubbling in front of 4 people, and like,
there you go.
I'm gonna freaking probably do it again on camera one day. Why not, chemical wizard and be the Dan Richer flame within the mind and the power of producing the bubbles. The bubbles, as Bubbles will say from Trailer.
I don't know, it looks like sponge to me.
Oh yeah, it is this like it's like this snowy plasma, weird. It's cool. It's cool. See, like when they put it from the bottom, it blocks the light. From the top, where it's just floating, it goes all the way through, right? And density. And one of the things I'm gonna do is make some of the iron, the ferrite state, and when it goes into this white monoatomic, it loses its magnetic properties. And only when it oxidizes does it start regaining the magnetic properties. But sorry, I just charged my phone here. I'm calling Mom quick. I want to continue talking on your design there, Michael.
Yeah, so
Faraday research.
yeah, so I've been developing this over the last few years, and I went through many designs. Like I said, I started off using a lawnmower wheel, and it worked good. It worked really good. Where I think a lot of people go wrong with their pulse motors is they're using the reed switch as actually the disruptive discharge, and I use the vacuum tube magnetic reed switches. They work for a bit, but eventually they do burn out because there's a huge amount of voltage going through that. So yeah, I burned up many vacuum tube reed switches, and that's not the way to go. The way you got to do it is you got to isolate the reed switch away from the rest of the circuit, and it's very easy to do. I use the relay switches that you get for automotive. They're like little square boxes, and you buy them at if you live in Canada, it's Canadian Tire or Auto Mart or Auto. All these auto suppliers, they carry them, and they have the switch that's actually isolated. So there's going to be 4 prongs. 2 of them will be for the actual switch, and then the other 2 are where the actual voltage goes through that circuit. So you can actually isolate it away from the rest of the circuit, and then that way you can have a reed switch, and you're not going to blow the crap out of it. So yeah, it's a lot of people say, no, man, you got to go with the MOSFETs and all this. No, I'm sorry, I refuse. I totally refuse. You have to have a disruptive discharge in the pulse motor to make it run right. I know one guy, he's been doing this for God knows 40 years, and he's still using MOSFETs. And I told him time and time again, I know you know a lot. I respect what you've done, but I disagree with you using MOSFETs. You got to get away from them. You got to use disruptive discharge switches. And he's still using them. It's like, like, how do I tell the guy who's been doing it for so long? And meanwhile, I can get better effects, better gains, I should say, in the amount of EMF I got coming back in my system than he can. And I don't know. Old school's old school. They have their ways, and some people swear by them. I don't. I refuse to use a MOSFET for a pulse motor. You do not get the same effects. You have to have disruptive discharge. Same with the Don Smith system. You have to have a disruptive discharge. That's where you get the huge gains in the system. So yeah, it's all part of experimentation, and I tried both, right? And I was using MOSFETs. I tried pretty much everything. What was the other switch? Oh yeah, I was also using the SSR relay switches. Great switches, they work good, but the problem is they're too slow. So that kind of put me back to where I was working with the automotive relay switches. Yeah, it's I've been at it for so long. It's just I've figured out the best route to do it, and it seems to be the most reliable. And you can put a lot of voltage through those automotive relay switches. So they work for me. So as long as you get the good combination of good fast reed switch, yeah, you're laughing. Just keep it isolated away from the rest of the system. Otherwise, you'll be replacing that reed switch every 3 to 4 hours. So, yeah. See if there's any comments here. Oh, I miss Radio Shack. Oh my God. They got rid of Radio Shack in Canada. I cried for like a week. And then they put in this new company called The Source, and they have absolutely junk. Like, you can't even buy any of the stuff that you used to have at Radio Shack. Terrible. Well, I got one place here in the Toronto area. He's got like basically like army surplus stuff, so I can get stuff that is like really, really old. And I go and visit him every now and then. It's an old guy. He's been running it for like 40 years. Grumpy old bugger, but he's good. Let's see what else is going on in the chat here. Yeah, the Chinese stuff, that's the problem. You get it cheap. That's why people keep buying it, right? But, all the old stuff, it's getting harder and harder and harder to find. What else we got going here? Yeah, Tim Hortons. Yeah. Yeah, that's my coffee. That's what's keeping me sane. Lots of coffee. What are you up to there, Alchemist? I think he might have stepped away. But yeah, anybody who wants to get into the pulse motor thing, I would suggest try building a jewel thief circuit. There's many plans out there. They're actually pretty easy to make. And that's kind of a good starting point. I think I tell pretty much anybody, make a jewel thief circuit and then learn what it does. And when you figure that out, then you can get into the pulse motors and stuff like that. So you have kind of a fundamental understanding of what we're actually doing. Just trying to see what stuff we got on the chat. Yeah, well, that's why you get into these experiments. You can forget the world around us, because the world around us kind of sucks right now.
Stepped out of the office for a second. I will be right back in like 1 minute, Mike.
Yep.
I'm always watching, though. I am always watching.
You're always watching me. Yeah, let's see what else we got here. Anybody have any questions regarding pulse motors or? There's a lot of stuff going on here. Chat's pretty active tonight. Yeah, you just, you know what? Anybody who's getting into this stuff, you just have to find one that interests you. Like, I like the pulse motors. I don't know. It just seemed to really interest me. So you look around, there's a lot of over Unity devices. You can get into, the Alchemy stuff, or you can get into the Bendini motors. You can get into a whole bunch of stuff. Find out, or the HHO, stuff like that. Start somewhere and then just kind of build off that, right? Like, I've been at this since 2005. So, yeah. Yeah, you have to just watch people and what they do and write stuff down on, make notes. Like I'm watching lectures like every day. I watched a really good one today on guys that are restoring old Tesla coils. And some of them were actually original, authentic, made by Tesla himself. So, yeah, it's like every day I'm trying to educate myself in some way, shape, or form. Well, I'm still using the spark gap and the pulse motor. You'll see. I still use the spark gap. I'll never leave the spark gap. The spark gap will always be in my devices in one way, shape, or form, because they have some characteristic to it that gives you the gains that a MOSFET just cannot reproduce. So, yeah. And here, put it to you this way, okay? To make it all sound legit, okay? If spark gaps were not the way to go, why was Tesla using it all in every single device? Because he could have, with his know-how, he could have came up with a switching device that did not have a spark gap. So for him to use spark gaps on every single device that he worked on tells you something. So take it from the master, Tesla. So he used spark gaps. So they're obviously, he knew there was something very, very special that goes on with spark gaps. And that's why even in pulse motors, Don Smith generators, I don't care what generator it is, there's always going to be a disruptive discharge because something.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just shutting down outside there because I'm heading over to the wifey's place for the night.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I got my grandmother's 91st birthday. She's actually recovered.
Wow.
So
Good.
there's my mom now knows 3 different elderly women, all in their 90s, that were all on palliative care, that all within the last 2 weeks were treated with antibiotics, and it killed their urinary tract infection, ITU. And apparently in these, and I witnessed my grandma like several times over a period of a month, where she literally, we thought she was on her deathbed. She was in the hospital. She was talking to dead people nonstop. And these other 2 ladies also apparently were delusional, talking to dead people, and getting this dementia. And it was all caused by these urinary tract infections in elderly ladies that is easily treated by antibiotics. All 3 of them are now out of the hospital, no longer on palliative care. And my grandma, celebrating her 91st birthday tomorrow, so I'm going down with my mom back to Mormonville in southern Alberta. My grandma is staying with my Mormon aunt and uncle, and then they have 4 children, and then each of their 4 children has 4 children, and now each of their 4 children has 4 children. So it's like my grandma's like a great, crazy, huge, freaking, I guess, top monarch in that one, and thus there is a giant group of Mormons to support them, and I love them. And
my grandmother,
talking with my Mormon uncle, and just how the Mormons of their perspective of golden tablets, and did they actually get some of those golden tablets that are in the Crespi collection and stuff like that, and where do they keep it? They talk about the giants, they talk about these ancient technologies, and it's pretty fascinating really to see. Maybe is that book of, as the South Park goes, a moron, the Mormon actually not so moronic after all. And in this prepper style burning society down, people all going for a phoenix rising ashes instead of, how about let's not burn it down and just exist. Those Mormons are good preppers, and they will survive, just like all of the Mennonites and Hutterites, and hopefully us too.
It's one thing I wished. It's one thing I wish I asked my grandmother about, because my grandmother lived right not too far where Nikola Tesla was born.
Nice.
My grandmother's Serbian, right? So
Serbian,
my mother's Serbian, and my mother was born in a small town called Bački Petrovac, which is in Serbia. So she wasn't very far away from Smiljan, Croatia. It's actually modern day Croatia right now, but he had Serbian parents. So I have kind of roots back to the same area where Tesla was born. And you kind of feel like a connection with that, and spiritually you kind of feel kind of connected to him. Coming back, coming from a Serbian parent, that's one thing I love to do, is actually go to Serbia and actually go to Tesla's museum. And apparently he's got, I think, about 8 devices there.
Actually went there and brought me back a couple of books about a decade ago.
Yeah, I'd love to go there.
They met his great niece or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
She actually works there at the place.
Well, I seen an interview with Nikola Tesla's great nephew. So when he knew Tesla, he was about 9 years old. And Tesla, I believe, was in his late 70s. So He had a pretty interesting interview, how he was as a person. And a lot of people painted him out to be kind of a really weird eccentric, but he was actually
a genius, straight genius.
Well, no, because they thought he was an eccentric when he really okay. It was just the way his personality
they think all
was.
Of us are eccentric.
No, well, no, but
you and me, brother, trust me.
No, but like people thought he was a freak in a way, right? And he really wasn't. He was a loving guy, and he loved to, be around children apparently. And he was could be, classified as like the family type guy, but his passion for electricity and his work basically just took over his life at a very young age. He already knew where his life was going at 3 years old when he created static electricity off his pet cat, Machak, and his, he was amazed, he's seen all these sparks and static coming off his cat's fur. And his dad said, yeah, that's static electricity, like the lightning you see in the sky. And at 3 years old, Tesla knew his path was already set at 3 years old. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah, so, he was a family guy. He was a very friendly guy. He was very good in conversation. He wasn't like, if he was in a situation like, say, like a party or whatever, he liked to socialize. He wasn't the type to, go to the corner of the room and sit down and not engage with anybody. He was a very engaging person. That's why he was very self-conscious in how he looked. So he always had his hair done right. He always wore good clothes. He always wanted to look respectable around other people. You know what I mean? So he had a bit of phobias. He was a bit of a germaphobe, and he would clean all his cutlery with a towel like 12 times before he would use it. And he had some funny habits that he had, but as a person, he was just as friendly as you or me, right? And that's something that you kind of, because it's like people kind of give him this image that he's like the evil, crazy scientist, right? When he wasn't like that at all. When he was in his lab doing his work, he was all business. And then, he liked to talk to the press, and he would chew their ear off for a couple hours. So, yeah, like my grandmother, she was born 1922. So we lost her a few years back now. She lived to 92 years old. I wish I had a good conversation with her if she ever heard stuff about Tesla. I was still kind of, I just wish I had that time to actually talk to her about Tesla, and I never got that. So it's too bad. She probably would have maybe shown me some newspaper clippings or told me stuff that she might have heard in the media or whatever. Yeah, so I kind of regret that I never really talked to her about Tesla, because they're basically from the same country, right? So
I agree with the telepathic. It's like a connection to source. I often experience such things. Mike, you talk about such things too in your own mind, and how like you're able to then like consciously construct through like the vision of like some sort of
Yeah, I kind of have an idea what his personality probably was, just by little clues here and there, how he liked to talk to the media, the newspapers, chew their ear off. And
like make every scientist or inventor that is ahead of their time, they try to make out as a kook and debunk instead of actually listening. And anything that went into metaphysical, went into spiritual, then it would also instantly claim to be a kook or a cult, right? And and today it's like I was on the Theory of Everything channel was doing a presentation or a premiere podcast, and I was like speaking about my work and your work, and like 3/4 of the people, like they're all extremely smart physicists,
Astronomers.
Exactly, astrophysicists. There we go.
Or
And
astrophysicists.
stuff like that. And it's like they're claim like some of the stuff I'd say. They're like, that's blasphemy. That's like just like this fault, like scam-free energy. It's impossible. Like all like, and it's just like, guys, like
No, it isn't.
listen to what
Like,
we're saying.
Yeah.
And look at the perspectives. And what we mean is like hydrogen, H4, HHO, Brown's gas, plasmoids, superconductors, anti-gravity. Like, it's higher dimensional electrical engineering and physics. And it's plasma state, it's ether state, quantum. It's and the best I could give the description I've heard is by Joseph P. Farrell in an two-part podcast he does with the Northern Borealis channel, YouTube channel. That's another good one I'm going to be showing, and I actually am booked to do with Al on their channel explaining. But Joseph P. Farrell, it's called The Alchemy of 0 Point, and it's a two-part that you got to watch. I'll post links to it. And he describes over unity as open circuit or closed circuit, but higher dimensional, multiple dimension circuitry of electrical engineering, where you're getting energies in from several different fields, several different sources. So it's like you're turning heat, you're turning sound, you're turning light, you're turning radio, you're turning all of these different energies into electrical and from plasma and all sorts, right? So it's that it's not necessarily like we're not violating any laws. It's just,
this is the
people. Sorry, I got to just say one last part of it is that people look at it having to be a closed circuit of a one-dimensional energy, one-dimensional circuit, and it's like open energy or open circuit isn't free energy, but it's like yes, it's not. Thus, it being an open circuit to several energy sources is what's giving it that nonlinear over unity qualifications and not violating the thermodynamic laws of Newton and the rest. And it's just simple, and your mind just has to accept several different components and all added into one and being converted into these harmonistic smaller circuits and systems, and then being multiplied, divided, and whatnot, whether it's reducing your load and your resistance and waste, or whether it's increasing the energy frequencies in. It's that you're calculating all of those in these higher dimensional electrical energy generating and usage circuitry and systems, and that's what it is.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of torn between, say, like an inventor, a visionary like Tesla, and a physicist like Albert Einstein. Okay, the physicists to me are still very much like philosophers. Okay, they say,
the alchemists.
See, like the way I see them is, they have their theories and they put it on paper, and then they say, okay, well, let's try to prove it mathematically. You have to prove it in a reality situation. You have to do an experiment to back up your theories. Until that's done, whatever comes out of a physicist's mouth, to me, is just talk. Okay? I don't care if you come up with a theory and you prove it in the mathematics. Honestly, it still doesn't mean anything to me. It will mean something to me is when you actually do an experiment to prove that theory. And not too many physicists out there can do that. I haven't seen it. And the thing is, there's a couple out there that said they've done it, but they're not showing these experiments out there. I haven't seen anything published. You know what I mean? So, I'm still kind of torn between physicists and actual engineers.
Absolutely. The theoretical as opposed to the experimental. It's 100% complete quackery of the complete theoretical of like some of these string theories and different things and whatnot, where it's like until it's tested. And here's Nassim Haramein, the Resonance Academy, was why I love his work is first he produced all the mathematics, the theoretical physicist parts of his Schwarzschild proton holographic universe. And then after that, since then, technology has now advanced enough that a lot of experimental through the radio telescopes, through the different new huge microwave systems, all the different advancements, but that other actual experimental physicists and scientists have now run different experiments that have validated and confirmed his predicted numbers from his equations and his theories, so that it's like the theoretical has now been confirmed experimentally.
Right. That's different.
One of the main things Nassim states is that in our physical reality, our physical universe, there's no smaller unit than Coulomb's
the Planck's theory. The Planck's theory.
Exactly. Yeah, the Planck and that little space, and that that alone, thus the particle accelerators and all these freaking quarks and different things that they're not relevant, and we're wasting so much resources into that instead of focusing on these little things like the monoatomics, like the cavitations, like all of.
I'm all about the experimentation.
Anybody has access to.
Yeah, I'll listen to an experimenter any day over a physicist. I'm sorry, that's just where I'm at. You know, okay, physicists, fine.
And be able to come up with tests that will either confirm or deny it, right? Like, be able to actually test different things if these theories seem valid, if the numbers seem valid, and that's why it's like progressing at a really amazing rate.
In my eyes, the only man that ever actually did say the theory, the physics, the mathematics, and actually built this stuff was Carl Steinmetz. Okay, you know, he was the head of the GE research division, and he has over 200 patents. So not only that he came up with the theory, he came up with the mathematics.
Like Tesla does have, and the Tesla Society has lots of all the classified, the NDAs and stuff like that Westinghouse had, that all the different companies had, as well as Walter Russell's different experiments and stuff like that. And there's a lot more, also like John Searle, the Searle machine.
Yeah.
There's so many different ones that it was. They went to copyright it, and the Copyright Bureau then gets it classified as anything anti-gravitic or over unity gets classified as national security risk, and then they take the information and take the project, it gets classified, and it's only good then being able to be accessed through these foundations afterwards, like the Tesla or societies, like the Tesla Society, like the Walter Russell Society, stuff like that. And that's why, like, you actually have to watch their conferences, talk to the people that have been studying it, go into their actual online resources and look in. And then it's like, oh wow, there's actually a whole lot of these that were claimed were lost, actually documented, preserved, and there's even like the results now because they were in what's it called, the sunset clauses, and that's why a lot of like the CIA and FBI vaults are now being released, and people stuff that was like, oh, it's a conspiracy, oh, it's impossible. It's like, actually, you can go to the .gov websites now, and the sunset clauses actually show the real story, and all of this stuff that was claimed to be lost, claimed to be hocus pocus. No, it's actually now confirmed, documented. You're able to see the actual written history and documentations, the signatures of like Edgar J. Hoover, all sorts of stuff, especially like Project Paperclip and whatnot. But also Trump's uncle and taking the Tesla stuff, Walter Russell,
and it's that it's half NDAs between like Westinghouse, GE, Bell Laboratories, and then half also through like the Navy Air Forces. And there's so much information now that's actually coming out that actually verifies all of this stuff, but you just have to look into it. You have to do your own research, and do simple experiments that are proof of concept, and then you get it to yourself like, hey, look at this. This was taught to not be possible, but it's happening in front of my eyes, and I can reproduce it over and over again.
Yeah.
And I understand, and it opens a whole new universe to you.
See, the thing I have a problem with a lot of people out there, they'll come up and say, oh, I came up with this new, theory and experiment, and they name it after themselves. But meanwhile, like, that's why I call my stuff Faraday research, because all the stuff I am building off of Michael Faraday's work. So I am not claiming it as mine. That's why I call myself Faraday research, because it's not mine. I'm taking an amazing inventor like Michael Faraday that probably made one of the most important discoveries in electrical history, and now over a century later, I'm working on his stuff and trying to protect and try to evolve what he started.
I couldn't agree more. That's why I always have the Tesla and Einstein portraits in the background, and that in my own research, I claim I am rediscovering alchemy through Sir Isaac Newton's writings, and then through my own experiments in electronics, through learning from the Iranian nuclear physicist Mehran from Tehran, the Keshi Foundation, as well as Nassim Haramein and the Resonance Academy are my main last 10 years of online learning discoveries and programs, and then doing my own experiments and connecting from their techniques, Isaac Newton's ancient alchemy, and then my own experiments and results, and connecting the two, deciphering it. And my next major thing is going to be deciphering in the ancient pictographic alchemical language that it has the entire periodic table. Each element has its own symbol. Thus, it's like this language is the oldest used language on Earth. That it's documented and used throughout all the ancient civilizations, Egyptian to East Indian to Chinese to Celtic, everywhere. And it's they had this language, each symbol for each element of the periodic table. Thus, they understood the entire periodic table, and that this pictographic language is actually a force vector geometric dimensional pictographic language of the construct of the crystallization, formation, and dimensional shapes of all elements on the periodic table. And it fits perfectly with Walter Russell's vortex-based periodic table. And it's that we're just rediscovering the system of nature that all these ancient societies, different people throughout time have rediscovered on their own. And that's why it's like, I'm not trying to put my name to anything. I'm not trying to copyright anything. I'm just trying to get the information out there and have people test it. And then once you understand, wow, this, like the alchemical symbols and language, it's so advanced. It is essentially the God particle, God code, universal, if there ever was one. Because once you actually get a comprehension of it, and then see that it was used throughout history, and it's still even used today in the occult and in the upper echelons of the secret societies of the religions too. In the alchemical writings of the past, it's like punishable by death if you expose this knowledge to anybody but your local king or queen, all sorts of stuff, right? But it's like that once you fully grasp it, once this is brought forward, and that's the thing is, I'm a self-adept initiate of the alchemy, and thus I didn't swear my soul or into any entity or organization this knowledge and learning it, and I'm able to bring it forward publicly. But this pictographic language, and I think that some sort of computer AI algorithms that understand language and whatnot will help with it. But it will show and expose a much, much, more advanced understanding and science of the ancients, and what was also told as the language of the demigods and the gods in
Yeah.
all of these ancient fables was this alchemy language. And it's once it's brought forward and people actually see what it is, the cold fusion, the everything, and it's just like numbers, like mathematics, like the Fibonacci geometry and the golden ratio, these fractal geometries, mathematics, dimensions. It's just the universal structure. It's not some sort of man-made construct. It is the actual structure of the universe. And it seems like it has, well, once you understand it, look at it, and experience it, a conscious construct or undertone or energy to it, and that we are all a part of it, and anyone is eternal and can tune into it.
It reminds me of this old saying: a secret cannot be kept a secret forever.
Exactly.
Right? A secret can never be a secret forever. Eventually it's going to get out, and by the internet was a huge part of us, connecting together and having conversations like this to try to bring back a lot of the secrets that were lost, through our own personal research and digging up things that a lot of people might not have found or knew existed, and it gets out. So like I said, a secret can only be kept for so long, and more every day the technology, the minds are manifesting. Everybody's manifesting their consciousness on this problem or the type of engineering we're trying to do. So the collective consciousness of all of us together is getting this stuff to come back. And I think that's going to be the key to our success. So the more we have conversations like this, the more we correspond with our listeners and interact with as many people as we can, this manifestation of consciousness is going to bring a lot of these old secrets back, and we're going to be able to figure this stuff out. The elite always wanted to suppress the little guy and keep all the secrets for himself.
Right?
Yeah.
The powers that be. So right here, I've got so many different pictures of this vortex self-organization entropy, and you can see the large on the left, and then also on the right side, there's actually a smaller one.
The self-organization.
It's actually 2 layers down, so it's about 3 inches below this top one. This top one is actually about 1 centimeter below the surface, and there's several easy exclusion zone layers of monoatomics and water, and that alternate, where one zone is completely free of any of these particulates, like completely free water, and then the next one is completely full of that milky, like that spongy monoatomic that is showing below in the bottom there.
So
they go in opposite spinning directions, and they self-organize, and then they form different layers, and it's absolutely mind-blowing.
And
different complexities, and that they move on their own. And it also, it disproves the convection current theory on a lot of things too. These EZ exclusion zones, and it's that water is literally polarizing itself and becoming a battery, superconducting battery state, and separating its own layers, positive and negative ions. And it's crazy new science, but at the same time, it's just nature and organizing.
Right. So it goes back to exactly what Tesla was saying. Energy, frequency, vibration will unfold the keys to the universe. And it goes for alchemy. You're getting the right frequency.
And it's the 369.
That's it.
It's your resonant frequency, your sound frequency. It's
energy, frequency, vibration.
Exactly.
Okay, those 3 words: energy, frequency, vibration. That will unfold all the keys to the universe. Okay, in every single aspect of existence. Energy, frequency, vibration. Think about it, because you can think about that one for years. Still trying to figure it out. So yeah, I think that's where we're at. And
I've
you know,
literally been pondering it for over 2 decades since first hearing it in my high school physics grade 10. Mike, that's awesome to say that. So another crazy thing that I'm being able to start reproducing and proving through scientific method is, for instance, when producing monoatomic silver in this electrolysis process, that the rate of monoatomic silver here, this is all a
the
cloud
frequency
formed off of, but it's that this cloud here of monoatomic silver off of the silver anode hanging in, that's a pure silver maple leaf coin there, and that this rate of the monoatomic silver is, it directly correlates and responds to the stages of the moon and the moon cycle. And as the moon waned and waxed, that cloud shrank in size, and then as the moon was a full moon, the cloud expanded and took up the most of the water in the electrolysis reaction. And then when there was a super moon one time, the entire jug was filled with the pure white. And then it
accelerates it.
size, it disappears, all the copper disappeared, just the straight silver. And it directly correlates to the cycle of the moon. And the ancient alchemists call the moon silver. And
well, see,
John
Bendini was saying in one of his lectures, he says, when there was a full moon out, my machine worked better. So right there, it's, you know, there's something to it. Now, going back to somebody was talking about in the chat about resonance, well, that's vibration. So if you want to do an experiment, I'll give you guys a little experiment. Try to find a metal rod and take another metal rod to it and give it a hit and see how well it rings. So try to find a piece of metal that rings really good. All right. So when you find that piece of metal that rings really good, then what you're going to do is you're going to get some copper wire, wrap it around that bar of metal. Okay. It could be a nail or it could be anything, but it has to have ringing. When you hit it with something hard, it should have a good ring. If you get a really strong ring, you've got the right piece of metal. Wrap a coil of wire around that metal, okay? Attach a voltmeter to it. Now hit it again, and you'll get voltage. It'll actually generate voltage. So just by hitting that piece of metal, making it ring, and get that harmonic resonance of that rod, that coil will actually generate a small amount of voltage. Set it in the millivolt range, hit it, boom, you'll get some you'll get a little bit of current in that coil. So that's going back to what Tesla was saying: energy, frequency, vibration.
And you have to have it in harmonic, right? Resonance.
Yes.
And so this right here, this is the sulfuric state that both Isaac Newton and then many ancient Bernard alchemists' writings throughout the ages talk about the yellow sulfur state of metal transmutation. And literally all that changed while I was producing the monoatomic, this was copper on copper in this one. And all that changed is that I took the anode, the positive side, and instead of going into this reaction right here, I had it connected one over to another jar right to the left here that's out of the picture. But so I had the positive in one jug and the negative in the other, and then another copper coil on each side and a wire connecting the two, right? So I was getting the current, but just that difference in current literally turns everything to this yellow. And I need to get this yellow tested to see if it actually is sulfur. And if it is sulfur, that is straight transmutation through the smallest amount, only 5 volts of electricity going in. And it also proves the ancient alchemy reactions and states of it, and that there's no different chemical elemental combination difference in this reaction or voltage difference for that matter. It's just one more connection between the two reactions.
Right.
And that's where does the sulfur come from, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
you're turning what? Copper? No, it's copper on copper, or salt or water into sulfur.
Yeah.
That right there, that's not an oxide. That is a transmutational chemical cold fusion reaction.
Okay, brother, I got to
Yeah.
go to the washroom real fast and a
I have to
cigarette, and
take
I'll be
off,
real
Mike.
back. Oh, you
Mike,
got to take off? Okay.
yeah, sorry. So maybe what we might do though is in an hour when I'm over at Amber's, we can set up from your channel and get your channel maybe hooked up also to mine and Otto's, and then do another one starting from yours, showing some of the stuff, some of your
Okay.
stuff and
All right.
whatnot.
Sounds good. Yeah, give me a shout later then.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep in contact here, and we'll
Thanks a
say
lot, everybody. Thanks a lot,
yeah.
everybody,
So
for
it's
joining us.
not or. Yeah, 9 almost 10 p.m. your time.
Yeah.
So if maybe 11:30 Eastern, if you're still up, we might do an impromptu hour-long or short half-hour-long one from your channel there.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, see what happens. If not, then we could always do one later in the week. But yeah.
For sure.
Anyways, everybody, thanks a lot for tuning into the show, and yeah, we'll be back.
Exactly. Love you all, and see you soon.
Yep. See you guys. Thanks, Bernie. Cheers.
This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, we seem to be here, and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
It's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one, or
Cosmic resonance. That's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
When you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony, on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
How's the sound, guys? Is this working at all?
Changed in World War II by Himmler, I believe. It was behind it, and they changed it all to 440. So it's not in tune.
That's right. Yes.
With us and with nature and the earth and all that. It's out of tune now.
And so the picture I have up right now is one of Walter Russell's, and it's showing the octave scale and how the octave scale goes through chemistry, creation, through geometry, through sound, through light, and through color.
But I mean, it's always been one of those things I've never really focused on whenever I tried learning piano, like the black keys, why are they there? When you play them, they just seem like off. They just make you feel a certain way instantaneously. It's like a lot of things. It just, that kind of connection, that kind of vibe or whatever it projects, that you get it immediately in that speed.
With the black keys, it sounds like it's the ether more, it's a background subconscious sound or frequency, like to do with dreams and, the other realms, which is interesting because when you listen to music today, especially, like the pop music, it's got a very heavy backbeat, right? We put you in a certain state where you're accepting with the backbeat, and then they sing all their lyrics into your mind, which is how they program you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Ooh, so that's like if you're resonating with the right harmony, you're getting like perfect consciousness or in dreamland. If you're resonating with the dark hole, you're getting sucked back down to like the upside down. No, thank you, Stranger Things.
If I'm doing certain sounds, sometimes like if I'm doing like breathing sounds or sounds with my throat, it depends. Like, but some of those frequencies do calm me down. And, a lot of those frequencies can be used to trigger people to feel, anxiety as well. And I think that happens a lot. And it's open to conspiracy and to interpretation on how people use those frequencies to really put people at a state of vulnerability. Because music's very powerful in that kind of way that can, shape even the most strongest of minds.
Yes, subliminal, and also, it's the way I see it too is it's been used all throughout history. If it even goes back to the biblical times, when they crumbled the walls of Jericho, they used a certain tone and frequency as a weapon, right? And we're doing it again today. We're coming up with ultrasonic weapons.
We will be having Alchemist, the beatboxer, back for the Science of Sound series very soon, I promise.
Vibrations is important. It's what makes people feel a certain way. It's what makes people, it could be used as a, to have specific things that can alter your mood based upon frequency. So, I mean, it's good to understand different aspects of sound, the very thing that everybody seems to be comfortable with when they hear something called music.
Yeah, that's a good thing. You don't be out of tune.
Think about that. Sound. Like Pac-Man.
All right. So that was a wonderful clip made by Campbell, autodidactic, of one of the pilot episodes of the Science of Sound series that will be one of the specific distinct programs within the 48-hour Weekend at Bernie's multi-channel stream. And for those that are unaware or yet to know, we stream where this is live on both my both Twitters, both my Facebooks. Also, we get it on Campbell's Facebooks. It's on my backup YouTube channel, Crypto Alchemist, because it's been 3 months now and YouTube still has not responded to me or reinstated my main YouTube channel, Bernard Conkin. That if you guys out there want to see more of my work and lots of my scientific experiments that were all documented under that Bernard Conkin channel, please do protest to YouTube to reinstate it, where I was falsely accused and attacked and slandered of pornography, which it's literally thousands of hours of these discussions, podcasts, and my alchemy science experiment streams on my channel. And there might have been, I think, a total of 30 seconds of where now I no longer can post the live StreamYard links in the chats for people to join, because some weirdos on one of the 48-hour stream pilots got on and they hate this so much they exposed their own little weenie and apparently some porn for 30 seconds or less before I caught it, because it even on my screen wasn't they're so complex in their attacks that on my screens it wasn't even showing that. It was showing their own, the original. It was imitating actual members of our community, their account, and displayed their account stuff. And it was I had David, and also I had the wizard Wilkinson, Callum on, and Callum was like going at me like, yo. And yeah, for maybe 20-30 seconds out of thousands of hours of experiments, there was one person sabotaged a tiny small amount of pornography, and my Bernard Conkin channel forever slandered and taken down. So yes, please, thank you, Hippie Shake, for posting my link in there. Please do go over and subscribe, because this backup Crypto Alchemist channel was originally supposed to be strictly crypto, and I'm still planning on turning it into that eventually as part of my collaborations with Project Moon Gold channel and several others, as well as my own written out other themed crypto projects and videos that I have to do that will be mind-blowing, because it has to do with fractal geometry and I guess how the different crypto layers, languages, encoding, cryptography itself, sharding, blockchain, and the geometry of that coding and language works. And also eventually my own projects. One will be NFT minting of all the crazy different original artworks that I have into Play to Earn NFT metaverse game, and also my own Crypto Alchemist project coin, with the goal of literally transmutating digital bits and bytes into physical gold, whereby staking part of this coin for a year, you will be earning 3% back pure physical gold that will be shipped to you at the end of each staking year if you pay the shipping fees, but it will all be worked in by smart contract, where part of the interest can probably go to that too. So you literally won't have to be putting out any actual cash, just the crypto put in, and you will literally get some physical gold out of it. Thus, real crypto alchemy, transmutating digital bits and bytes into physical gold. And I have, so that was the clip I had up there of Ominous and Mike and Campbell in the Science of Sound, and a little video shorty that Campbell had made for me. And now I will play one last one. This one will be shortened, and this will be the Mike Faraday research, myself, and Otto intro that will be played at the beginnings, we just have
Yeah,
to shorten it
DC
to
is
get
more
it
of a
up.
brute force type
But
electricity,
this
right?
is another
That's why
beautiful
it's
video
you know, has its
by Campbell.
inefficiencies. Like it's
Well,
super small,
It
you know,
used to.
electronics.
It used to, but your pulse motor is the exact opposite, where it's
Right.
like the most efficient now.
Yeah, yeah.
So is
But,
the pulse motor a DC motor?
It's a DC motor, yes. Yeah, it's a DC motor, but when you got it set up properly, you can, yeah, you pulse it into that frequency of AC. And it's like I can run my pulse motor. I've had it as low as 120 milliamps, or 120 milliamps of power. That's like nothing. And you know, I can get high voltage back EMF off at around 160 to 170 volts, right? So that's,
up.
yeah, like when you get the back EMF coming off the coil, you're going to get these huge spikes. And when you get it right at the right frequency and the right resistance, you know, you can get 160 volt spikes coming back. And that's what you capture. When you capture it, you dump it into, you know, a battery or dump it into a capacitor, and then utilize it, you know, for whatever you want to do, right? But as far as like efficiency wise, a pulse DC pulse motor is probably the most efficient motor you'll ever see. So as far as like the pulse motor is concerned, where everybody goes wrong with a pulse motor is they're not using a spark gap switch. Okay, and the spark gap switch, if you're utilizing it properly, it basically negates the Lenz's law. Okay,
So what I believe that is right. It's you have that whole circuit in resonance with itself, or very close to resonance, and then the spark gaps that you're adding in, Mike, are turning that circuit into an open higher circuit dimension endothermic reaction, where it's taking the energy out of the environment, whether it's using radio waves, sound waves, or heat waves. It's taking some sort of that energy and then adding that into the amplitude of that resonance sequence.
Right, basically a voltage doubler. If you put, say, two spark gaps together, you're even going to get even more power coming in. So the more power you can add to the system from an exterior source like counter space, as you know, the spark gap is creating, that is basically is what's going to save your dipole. You know, like this, you know, 100 years ago was unheard of. This would be like, you know, Star Trek stuff, right? And Tesla seen all this 100 years ago. You know what? Okay, he didn't have transistors and stuff, but he was using the spark gap. But he started realizing the spark gap, there was something really to this. He was getting an excessive amount of power coming back through a spark gap. And that's why his earliest Tesla coils were all rotary spark gaps, because they were bringing in such a huge amount of potential into the system that, you know, at first he did not know, where is this power coming from? Was it coming from the antenna? Was it coming from the coil? Or was it coming from the spark gap? And he finally realized, you know what, it's really coming from the spark gap. Not all of it, but a great portion of the excessive amount of voltage that he was creating was coming through the spark gap. So he started figuring, you know what, there must be, you know, this power is coming from counter space. Because, you know, the Tesla coil, if you point a Tesla coil at another Tesla coil directly, and you put a neon bulb through it, you got it at proper frequency, there will be a black void that'll show up in the neon tube, where the two frequencies of the longitudinal wave are hitting each other and creating this void. And that's counter space, when you got two light sources hitting each other.
All right, guys, on that note, we are going to call her, and we'll see you in an hour. Have a good night.